Hi, my name is Holly and I am the founder of Think Tranquility. Today I am going to talk about subconscious fears. I'm going to explain the two main types of subconscious fears and which subconscious fear affects us the most. Now, you may be possibly wondering what subconscious fear even is. Subconscious fear, basically put, is when the subconscious mind is triggered, causing us to then physically react in a fight or flight mode. Now, a lot of the time, we're not even consciously aware of this, but we react the same nonetheless. I believe that every single negative emotion that we experience on a daily basis is caused by a subconscious fear. Now, that's a pretty big statement to make, so I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean by that. Think about the last time that you were really angry. What happened? What was the cause behind your anger? What were the circumstances? How did you react? I can bet you anything, and I've not even met you, I can bet that in that moment when you felt that anger, your heart rate went up, your blood pressure went up, you possibly started shaking and sweating, you might have felt sick. Physically and emotionally and mentally, you would have felt bad. No doubt about it. If you didn't, you wouldn't have been angry in the first place, right? I can also bet that in that moment, or those few moments of anger, however long that emotion lasted for, the reason behind that anger was a feeling of loss, a fear of losing something happening that you had no control over, feeling scared, perhaps feeling anxious, getting stressed out. Your mind started creating all these horror stories and you thought, what the hell, I can't cope, I'm not handling this, I don't know what to do. And that would have been triggered by a situation that hit you out of the blue, something that you found out about, or something that someone said or done to you directly. Either way, the reason behind that anger would have been fear. Fear would have been the main cause. You just perhaps weren't consciously aware of it. You can compare that to every single negative emotion that we feel on a daily basis. If you really think about the reason why you're experiencing a negative emotion, drill it down and really think about it. It's fear. It is all fear. So, why do we experience subconscious fear? And which subconscious fear affects us the most? The first subconscious fear is based on external fears. External fears are fears that we want to avoid at all costs. So, for example, spiders or bugs, insects, flying. Those are physical things that a lot of people would not like to have anything to do with whatsoever. Just the thought of them makes a person shudder. What are your physical fears? Can you think of any off the top of your head? These external fears are also known as phobias, and they usually arise from having had a very negative experience with them. My external fear is spiders. Now, spiders, for me, the thought of them alone just makes me go all tingly. Even now, I'm starting to shudder at the idea of a spider and its legs and its body and the hair. It has a negative impact on me straight away. And I can feel my body tensing, going into a fight or flight mode. That is being triggered by my subconscious. And I will explain to you why I'm scared of spiders. When I was younger, I was in my nan's garden, sitting on the bench. I think it was summertime, and I must have been about 3 or 4. There was a big spider crawling on the back of the bench, and I was sitting exactly as I am now with this spider crawling behind me. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, you know, it's doing its thing, just ignore it. And at some point I must have accidentally knocked it, because when I did, all these spiders just came out of nowhere. So looking back now, it must have been a female spider, and she was carrying a load of eggs on her back, and these eggs just hatched, and these what looked like thousands of spiders just came out of nowhere, really, really tiny ones, and they just ran everywhere, ran all over the place. And being so small, it was so frightening to experience that. And I just freaked out. I got so scared, I ran inside crying, because I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. So when it comes to external fears, it's usually as a result of something like that, where something's happened to us that's been really bad. Flying, for example, it could be that yourself or someone you know has been on a plane and there's been a lot of turbulence, it hasn't been a smooth journey, and it's put them off of flying completely, and they've just thought, no way, I'm not doing that, it's just too much grief, I'd rather get a boat or drive or take some other form of transport, or even not travel at all, because the phobia, the fear, is that bad. And the subconscious is so powerful in that respect. So the first subconscious fear is external fears. But which fear affects us the most? The fear that affects us the most subconsciously is internal fears. Now, what's the difference between an external fear and an internal fear? Well, an internal fear is triggered by an external factor that ultimately makes us feel unworthy. Now, the reason why internal fears are the most powerful, and this is the subconscious fear that affects us the most, is because we experience it on a daily basis. I think it's safe to say that we all suffer from a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, and it is all of those insecurities within us that cause us to feel anxiety, stress, anger, frustration, hatred, jealousy, resentment, and so on. All of those negative emotions that we do kind of dip in and out of on a daily basis. The insecurities and the internal fears are at the basis of all of those negative emotions. But an external situation or person is usually the thing to trigger it. So why is that? Why is it that internal fears are the most powerful of the two subconscious fears? The reason why is because not only do they affect us so frequently, but we create all these fears and we have all of these fears programmed into us from a very young age. And that is usually down to the adults that we spend a lot of our time with growing up. Now, I don't want to start talking about childhood and who's had a bad childhood, who hasn't. However, the fact remains that what we're exposed to when we're very young does have a huge, huge influence over the rest of our lives. Our parents and the way that they might discipline us, the things that they tell us when we're younger, for example, money doesn't grow on trees, don't talk to strangers. There's all these different presuppositions that we're told when we're younger, and the way that our parents or our teachers or any kind of adult that we have a lot of exposure to when we're young, it does ultimately affect us later on in our life, and it stimulates all these fears. And in that respect, internal fears are very similar to what's also known as limiting beliefs, because it's a way of programming us and making us feel a certain way about ourselves and how we should think, feel, act and behave in certain situations. And when we are in certain situations, or we are speaking to a certain person and they might say something to us that upsets us and it triggers us, that is a fear. That is our subconscious mind saying, uh-oh, what's going on here? I don't like this because it's making me feel bad. It's making me question myself. I'm feeling a lot of self-doubt. I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And all this negative emotion comes racing to the surface. Have you ever experienced that? Have you perhaps gone to a party or a social gathering where you've all of a sudden just started to feel really conscious and you felt insecure and felt like, oh, I don't really want to be here, and people are saying to you, oh, come on, you look great, you look amazing, don't be silly, go over and dance, enjoy yourself, have a drink, and you just can't relax. You just feel like, but no, I can't, and you don't even know why. We are every day having these types of fears. We're experiencing these types of fears. So out of the two, which of the subconscious fears is the most powerful, and which subconscious fear affects us the most? It's definitely the internal fears. Because how frequently have you had an emotion which has been very negative that has come up out of nowhere and you don't even know why, and you blow things out of proportion, you overreact, you become very defensive, and you might get angry, or you might start really crying, or you just might then be in a bad mood for the rest of the day, and you can't quite rationalize why, and you think, I don't understand this, like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why am I behaving so negatively towards this? Why am I being affected so much emotionally? It's not adding up. And that is due to your internal subconscious fear. And no doubt, if you go back to your childhood and you look at certain areas in your childhood and you think about how your parents might have spoken to you or disciplined you, or even just communicated with you in a certain way over certain topics and subjects, you'll find that there is a certain pattern. Now, I'm not going to go into all of that now, because I am going to save how to overcome these fears for a later video, and I will be going into it in a lot more detail. But for now, I just want you to think about, as in regards to your internal fears, which ones you can relate to. Can you relate to a feeling of inadequacy, unworthiness, not feeling loved, feeling like you've always got to prove yourself, you've always got to, justify yourself to people? Are you a people pleaser? Do you feel like you've always got to be the one to make the peace and make everything okay? Fear can affect us in so many different ways, and what's so sad and actually so frustrating is that a lot of people don't realise that all of the negative emotions that they experience is actually fear-based, and it's so sad. So what I would love for you to do is really now start to think about your internal fears and which internal subconscious fears have the biggest impact on you on a daily basis. What triggers you the most? I hope you enjoyed today's video, and no doubt you probably have a lot of questions, stories and experiences to share of your own. Please put them below, because I would love to hear from you and engage. Do you know anyone who is currently struggling with subconscious fears, be it external or internal? Why don't you send this video to them? You might make their day. You can also subscribe to the Think Tranquility channel, where you'll receive all the latest videos from me on a weekly basis. Get to know more about me personally by heading on over to Instagram, where I post daily inspirational content about myself, the world at large, and a lot of the topics that I discuss here on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, I am an empowerment coach and I work with lots of people, helping them to feel more confident and empowered about who they truly are and the person that they want to become moving forward. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.